Time to act prehistoric again this week with a look at another member of the Dinobots. It's the basics on the silent, surly spike-tail, SNARL. The toy that would become the original SNARL was first released in 1984 as part of the Japanese toy line Diaclone. The figure was part of the Dinosaur Robo subline of mechanical dinosaurs and transformed into a stegosaurus. All 5 Dinosaur Robo were imported by Hasbro and released as part of the second year of the Transformers line in 1985 as the Dinobots, a team of powerful, rebellious Autobots who resented the command of Optimus Prime. Marvel Comics writer Bob Budiansky wrote a profile for SNARL, characterizing him as the loner of the Dinobots, a morose spot who said little and only found happiness in war. He hated being stuck on Earth and loathed his clumsy dinosaur mode, though the form did have its advantages. His dorsal plates could absorb solar energy, supercharging his strength. In the original Transformers animated series, SNARL and the Dinobots were built on Earth by the Autobots, and were primitive bots of low intelligence. SNARL was part of the second batch of Dinobots constructed, alongside Swoop, and their first mission was to battle their predecessors, Grimlock, Slag, and Sludge, who had been duped into working for the Decepticons. Once the rogue dinos had been brought back to the Autobot side, the team went on to enjoy multiple showcase episodes across the show's first 2 seasons, their brutish nature and rebellious attitude sometimes causing as much trouble for Optimus Prime's forces as it did for the Decepticons. The continued availability of the Dinobots toys in 1986 earned them supporting roles in The Transformers the Movie. But for some unknown reason, SNARL was infamously missing from the team during the film, and could be glimpsed only in a few brief crowd scene cameos. Fortunately, he was back during the subsequent 3rd season of the cartoon, which, following the precedent set by the movie, depicted him and his teammates in more humorous roles, now playing their lack of smarts more for comedy. SNARL and the Dinobots were handled very differently in the Marvel comic book, in which they were part of the crew of the Autobots spaceship when it crash-landed on Earth 4 million years ago. Regular bots of normal intelligence, they were given their dino modes by the ship's computer when it reactivated them to battle the Decepticon Shockwave in the Savage Land, a prehistoric lost world hidden in Antarctica. It was SNARL who ended that battle by collapsing a mountain on top of Shockwave, but unfortunately, the avalanche also knocked the Dinobots into a tar pit where they lay stuck for millennia until being found and reactivated in the modern day. The team quickly became favourites of British writer Simon Furman, and starred in multiple exclusive stories that he wrote for the United Kingdom's version of the comic, striking out on their own adventures, including one in which a malfunctioning SNARL laid waste to a US military base. The discontinuation of the Dinobots toys in 1987 saw them phased out of the comic, some of the many victims taken offline by Starscream when he acquired cosmic power, but they weren't gone for good. In 1990, a new toy of SNARL was released, a non-transforming Action Master, whose partner droid Tyrannotron converted into a cannon for him to wield. Though he never adopted this form in the comic, the toy's release did ensure that he and the other Dinobots were brought back online to star in new adventures. In particular, UK stories showcased SNARL's struggles with the rusting disease Corrodia gravis, which required the Dinobots to temporarily transfer his mind into a real stegosaurus from the Savage Land to keep him alive until they could heal his body. In 1991, SNARL's original toy was re-released in Europe and Australasia as part of the Classics line of reissues. Then it was made available again in 1993's Generation 2 toy line, in new red and rarer green colour schemes, ensuring him further appearances in Marvel's tie-in Generation 2 comic. SNARL was the only Dinobot other than team leader Grimlock to appear in all 3 of the Action Master, Classics and G2 ranges. But despite this prominent showing, he's always sort of been the other guy among the Dinobots, never really standing out from his teammates. Best known for not appearing in the movie, instead of for anything he's ever actually done. Punctuating this lack of notability, after G2, Hasbro took to recycling Snarl's name, repeatedly reusing it for multiple brand new characters unrelated to the original, to an extent that no other Dinobot endured. The first of these new Snarls was released in the Beast Wars toy line in 1997, a heroic Maximal who transformed into an organic Tasmanian devil. Characterized as a ferocious surprise attack specialist, this Snarl didn't appear in the Beast Wars cartoon, but in the 21st century he was featured in several comic books from IDW Publishing. In the Japanese market, meanwhile, the toy was released as a separate character named Tasmania Kid, a mischievous, insubordinate young warrior out to make a name for himself, who served as one of the main cast members in the Japanese original animated series, Beast Wars 2nd. A new toy of Kid was released in the Transformers Legacy toy line in 2024. Beast Wars sequel series Beast Machines featured its own Snarl, released in the year 2000, this one a maximal tactical genius who turned into a techno-organic lion. In 2003, this figure was recolored for the Transformers Universe toy line, earning Snarl a small role in the Universe comic published through official convention BotCon as a Matrix Templar, able to channel the power of the Transformers god, Primus. 2005's Transformers Cybertron featured a wolf named Snarl, a cunning warrior from a race of beast mode Transformers that evolved on a Cybertronian colony on a jungle planet. As seen in the Cybertron cartoon, Snarl had once been friends with the jungle planet's tyrannical ruler, Scourge, before his rise to power. But when the Autobots came to his world, Snarl was inspired to side with them against his former friend, on their mission to save the galaxy from a colossal black hole. Finally, a Decepticon Minicon named Snarl, who transformed into a tiger, was released in the Classics toy line in 2007. This figure brought a decade of wild animal-themed Snarls to an end. The next year, in 2008, the name finally permanently returned to the Dinobots in Transformers Animated. Except, in this series, the name was repurposed for the Triceratops Dinobot, who back during Generation 1 had been named Slag, while the Stegosaurus didn't appear. Check out the basics on Slug for the full story on the Triceratops and the saga of his changing name. Now, despite all this name reuse, the Stegosaurus Snarl hadn't been completely forgotten. A Snarl with an organic Stegosaurus mode, a recolor of Beast Wars Neo Saberback, was released in 2003's Transformers Dinobots line. And the classic character had continued to appear in new Generation 1 themed media, including comics from Dreamwave Productions and IDW. But it wasn't until the 2010s that the full original 5-man Dinobot team really started to return to prominence, beginning with 2012's Fall of Cybertron video game. In this version of their story, Snarl and his teammates gained their dino modes when they were captured and experimented on by Shockwave during the war on Cybertron. Their adventures continued in tie-in comic books, in which Snarl served as pragmatic advisor to Grimlock, while the team fought to survive on the dying planet. A live-action movie incarnation of Snarl was introduced in the tie-in toy line for the 2014 movie Age of Extinction, though unfortunately, once again, the character wasn't among the Dinobots who appeared in the film itself. Still, the film pushed the Dinobots to the forefront of Transformers media, and many more appearances by the team, Snarl included, would follow over the next decade. In 2018, new toys of Snarl and the Dinobots were released in the Power of the Primes toy line. Styled after the original Generation 1 figures, they could combine to form the giant robot Volcanicus, and earned the team appearances in assorted pieces of tie-in media, including Machinima's Power of the Primes webtoon. In 2020, Snarl enjoyed a bigger role than usual when he and Sludge made a few guest appearances in the second season of Rescue Bots Academy, in which they befriended Academy student Hoist after he overcame his fear of the two hulking dinos to teach them the value of caution and careful planning over brute strength. In 2021, Snarl featured in Transformers Cyberverse, which reimagined him, Sludge, Slug, and Swoop as young Transformers from a Cybertronian colony planet who idolized Grimlock from afar. When their world was destroyed by a gang of mercenaries, they pursued the villains to Cybertron, where the mystical enigma of combination merged them with their hero Grimlock into Volcanicus to save the planet from meeting the same fate as their world. Most recently, Snarl's kept busy in 2023 with both a large figure in the Studio Series toy line, based directly on his appearance in the original cartoon, and a small one in the Legacy line, part of a range of small-scale combining Dinobot toys, once again able to merge into Volcanicus. He might be a bot of few words, with a tendency to stay out of the spotlight, but these days, now that he's reclaimed his name, wherever the Dinobots tread, Snarl will almost certainly be charging into battle alongside them. And those are the basics on Snarl. Where does he rank among the Dinobots for you? Or maybe one of the other Snarls is your favourite? Share your opinions below, and remember to subscribe, and if you can, support the show on Patreon for more history and lore from the world of the Transformers.